Hello, hello. How are you doing today? I am Tricia Dycka of the Happy Empath, and I'm going to be joined in a moment by Evelyn, the Fab Chieftess, and we will be talking about mindset. So let's wait for her to just join us quickly. All right. Go live. Yes. Please tell me I did it right. Yes. Hello. I did it. I'm so happy.
How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I am good. So happy that I didn't miss the alive. I had my times confused.
Well, I was just trying to add you because this is the first time I'm doing a live and adding somebody. So I'm so happy I did it right. I was like, oh shit, I gotta get around.
Yeah, you're gonna be daunting, but you did it. I'm on.
Welcome everybody. I'm so glad for all of you who can join us. Today, Evelyn from the Fab Chieftess and I will be talking mindset and the different personas. That's going to be super cool.
Yeah, so, as a mindset coach, a lot of folks, believe it or not, don't pay as much attention to the inner self-talk, that voice that we have, and how it impacts your thought process, your perception, and how you engage and interact. So today we're going to explore those personas.
Which is pretty cool because I know for an empath, one of the things that I'm working on constantly is my mindset. It's constantly like, first off, I got to question, are the thoughts am I hearing or making up, are they mine? And then it comes down to, all right, so they are mine, and really, is it true? So I'm constantly on about my mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah, as an empath, you deal with a little bit more, right? Because you have your own feelings and emotions and thoughts. And then as an empath, you're also getting all that feedback from people around you, the external environment. So you have double duty, essentially.
Yeah, it's true. So for me, when everything first happened 10 years ago, I'll just say it. I was the biggest one saying, "Oh, this is a curse. I'm cursed. Woe is me. My life sucks." Oh my God, I could go on and on. Really, I was negative Nelly number one, and then I remember one day saying, this is not me. This doesn't work for me. It's time to pull your pants up and get your shit together because we need to do something that's actually beneficial to help us and change all this, shift this energy, shift my mindset. So yeah, I'm curious to hear about your inner personas and yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to the negative self-talk, you have three sort of states, right? You have your negative self-talks, the negative voice. You have the positive self-talk, which is actually a lot less than the negative.
Yeah.
You have the educational voice, right? The voice that is prompting you in some ways, providing some instruction for you to learn and develop. So those are the three kind of areas where the talk falls into. But now our focus, which is really the focus that a lot of us have, is that negative self-talk, that inner voice. And that inner voice tends to fall into one of four personas, or is most times a combination of one or more. Hi.
And it's interesting because, I mean, for myself, I definitely would focus on that negative just seemed to be the most dominant. It was so dominant in your head. You know, it does take, in my case, it took a while to actually shift that focus from that negative to the positive or to something that was constructive and actually helped me and empowered me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all have that. Even myself as a mindset coach, we are human. And so we fall into these patterns, into these cycles. And so when it comes to the negative aspect, and you and I talked about this before, but as humans, our genetic predisposition prehistorically was to be aware of our environment, aware of those negative triggers. You know, is there a lion? Is there a tiger? Is there a bear? Because this meant, you know, that you were unsafe, that you had to, you know, have that response where it's fight or flight. And so nowadays in our modern times, we're not running from bears and tigers and other forms of danger, but we've shifted that focus to instead look at the negative. So anything that comes up that's negative, whether it's an event in your life, whether it's a thought process or action, you're putting more focus on that because we're predisposed to put that focus.
Yeah, and we do. We, you know, it's constantly, you know, you're taught as you're growing up, the glass is half empty. You know, focus on what's real, or focus on the different phrases that we're told. You know, you must work hard to get ahead, and there's so many of them. You know, money doesn't grow on trees, and all of these things that you are constantly hearing growing up, whether friends, society, your family. It's kind of gets this loop in your brain.
Mm-hmm. Well, people also don't realize that the way that we speak, whether it's our internal voice or our external voice, has a lot of impact. And a lot of times, the words that we choose can have a negative connotation. And the more you do that, the more you repeat the cycle, the more power you give to those negative thoughts, that negative voice.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's so many of us who are, you know, those words, you don't think those words have that action, but and I'm trying to think of a word right now, and I'm not able to, but there are words that if I'm talking, I'll be like, wow, and I listen to myself, I'm like, what did I just say? You know, something that you thought was it's like, well, maybe I can do it, and it's like, huh? It's interesting. It's really, and again, I know you and I've had this conversation about being present and paying attention to ourselves versus getting stuck on that hamster wheel and just going. And that, I think, for me, is when I do get caught up, that hamster wheel, that voice takes its own journey, and it's like, I feel like I'm pulled in so many different ways.
Well, to give you an example, the word have combined with to, I have to. That is a very common phrase that we all use, but if you think about it, it's negative because it is implying that you have to do something that you're being forced to do, that you're not in alignment with, that you don't want or are happy to do. So what I tell folks is, if you find yourself saying, I have to, reframe that and say, I get to. Because when you change it to get to, it now has a more positive connotation.
What about should?
Should is also negative because, and the implication there is that you have to take an action that is kind of forced. You feel obligated, right? It's not coming inherently from a desire that you have. But we all use it.
Yes, we all do. We all use it, and it's like we're shoulding ourselves, we're forcing ourselves to do something, and that also has that negative connotation, and that also brings that negative thought pattern right back in when you use the word should. Because I'm like, stop shoulding yourself, you know, and I tell my clients, stop shoulding yourself. They're like, what? I'm like, because when you force yourself to do something, you don't like it, you're angry, you're resentful, and then, you know, you get down that rabbit hole with it.
Exactly. When you're forced to do something or you feel obligated to do something, which we as women especially do a lot, we just can't say no for some reason and want to people please. And so we'll take on, you know, activities or actions or relationships that really aren't serving us, that aren't coming from our inherent desire.
Yeah, it's true. We're big notorious people pleasers. We're big yes people, even though our inner guide, intuition is saying no, no, no. I mean, people don't realize when you say no, you're actually saying yes to yourself and being able to do something else. Focus your time and energy on something you really, really want to do, and that engages you. Instead of saying yes to something, and now you're angry, and now you're resentful, and you're angry at yourself, and you're resenting doing it. So you're doing it, and you're not really there. And when you go, you've got a big attitude.
Exactly. And think about all those emotions you just mentioned. And if it's something that you're doing like at a later date, up until that date, you're revisiting these same emotions. Negativity is compounding. And you may go to this event or take this action or meet this person, and you're in a foul mood, you're not engaging in, you know, in the best way that you know how. Again, negative, force, obligated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems to be when you find yourself in that, it is, you know, because completely believe thoughts become things. Our words are also part of our belief system. And our words are actually telling us what our beliefs are if we pay attention to them. So if we're talking to ourselves and you can't do this, you know, who do you think you are? It's like, hold up. When did I, you know, decide that I couldn't do this? Or sometimes it's like an automatic response coming out. And you have to, for me, I've definitely done it where I've stepped back and go, well, that's an interesting point of view. You know, where did that come from? And is that really serving me? Like, I really like to ask, you know, is that really serving me? And the other thing, because I am an empath, I will ask myself, is that really your belief? Or is that something you picked up from somebody else that's you've taken on as yours because, you don't know, you've heard it or you saw it, or that person believed it so heavily you took the emotions on of it.
Exactly. And again, this is why I said empaths have double duty, because you're dealing again with your own internalization, your own reactions and experiences. And now you add another layer on that, which really can be difficult to control, right? We can control our reactions and how we feel about things. When you add somebody else's input, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I'm loving this because for me, like, I think mindset's tremendous for all empaths. I think they really need to focus on their mindset. They really need to focus on what they're thinking, what they're bringing into their environment. So this is great talking about this.
Yes. So what I find too, people don't, again, pay attention or really give credibility to mindset work. It isn't until they're bumping their heads against something or until they face a cataclysmic event or continuous failure that they decide, okay, something is going on. I have to explore what that is. And that's when they want to incorporate the mindset. But for me, my whole purpose is to try to get folks to look at that early on to prevent these headaches, prevent these pain points, prevent these failures.
Yeah, that's interesting because we bump our head against something and we're like, why isn't this working? Or why isn't this falling out the way that I thought it would? And it's, you know, coming back to, you know, take responsibility for everything that we do. Take responsibility for our actions, our thoughts. And where is this belief and these words and this mindset hanging us up?
Exactly. And talking about the self-talk, going back to that. So we mentioned the personas, or we're going to talk about personas. So here they are, right? There's 4 personas that are commonly known for that negative self-talk. One is the worrier. One is the critic, which the critic is, everyone has the critic, right? There's the victim, and there's the perfectionist. All of these tend to tie into each other. Some of us fall into 1 or 2 categories more so than the other. The worrier tends to bring up that anxiety, right? That emotion of like, oh, like things aren't going well, I'm anxious, which then will compound the critic. The critic is always judging you, you know, putting you in a negative light, diminishing your self-esteem. Then you have the victim, the woe is me, I can't do anything right, there's all these things against me, so I can't perform and execute how I want to perform. And then the one we all know also, the perfectionist. Perfectionist leads to burnout because we're constantly pushed to perform, to execute at a high standard, which causes, again, this cycle that you're not able to meet, and so burnout comes along.
And I'm going to raise my hand to worrier and critic. You know, definitely I've gone down that worry, and then you're right, that critic comes in. I've never thought about it that way, though. When you are stuck in that worry, you're worried about, oh God, everything and anything. You know, I mean, when the pandemic started, I was worried about everything, you know. At first I laughed. I was like, this is a joke. Like, you know, like the first 2 weeks beforehand, I'm like, they're not going to shut us down. Like, because I live in New York. And then all of a sudden it was like, then I became worry mode, and then the critique came in of like, you should have listened, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, so yeah, it was, I've definitely been down that worry and critique.
I'm definitely a worrier as well. Worrier and a little bit of a critic, which is tied to that perfectionism. For a very long time, I sought external validation in my younger years. Awards, trophies, I would do things with the outcome of receiving some sort of recognition. So I had, to work through that emotion, which in turn allowed me to work on the critic, to be kinder to myself, to communicate to myself and provide that empathy that I give to others so freely to myself. So this is why I tell folks, your mindset impacts your self-talk, your beliefs, your ego, and your persona. But these things in turn impact your mindset. So it's like a yin and yang, right? They're connected.
And they're pushing and pulling against each other. I mean, and I would love to know if you have some kind of tool, for the worrier to the critique. And you are right. There's somehow all four of them are interconnected, because I really don't want to admit this, but when you said about the woe is me, you're like, I can't do this. And I'm like, oh shit, I've definitely gone down that and said that, and I really, stay away from that woe is me vibe, that thought. But when you said that, I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm always looking to improve or create something new. So when you get stuck and you see yourself in these mindsets, what is there that we can do to change our focus? I mean, I know when we did that other interview, you said journaling, and I love to journal, and I agree. But besides journaling, is there something else, maybe some kind of self-talk that could say, here we go, let's move out of this?
Well, so a lot of what I offer in terms of like tips are pretty similar, right? Because when it comes to the mindset and the negative self-talk, the action is really the same, right? So journaling is just one tool that you use to sort of jot down, write in tangible form what you're feeling and experiencing. So you can come back to it either later that day or at a later date and see the pattern, see how you've progressed, and break it down and flesh out how you can improve on that feeling, that experience, that emotion. But something simple that you can do, which can be hard at first, is when these thoughts come in, you have to acknowledge them. You have to actually take a pause, be present in the thought, and think to yourself, okay, I just had the thought. Two things. One, where could this be stemming from? And two, how can I reframe this so it's more positive? And again, it sounds very simple, but it can be hard because we're moving about, we're multitasking, our mind can have several tracks going at once, and so we can have a thought and say, I'll deal with it later. But if you constantly say, I'll deal with it later, again, these experiences and emotions are building, compounding. We're going up and up and up until some point there's a breaking point, and you don't want to reach that point. You want to address it as it comes up.
Yeah, that's true, because it's when we do, I'll put it on the back burner and look at it. I'll put it on the back burner. That back burner lights and it just blows.
Yes.
So, definitely. So I agree with you. When you start to hear it, like the other day, I was like in some kind of, I don't know, tailspin. And I had to stop, and I'm like, dude, I see what you're saying. I see what's going on here. But now I'm like, I want you to look at all the other things on this side. So I actually was able to go from one to the other on, because I was critiquing myself over, I think it was posting in social media, to be honest. And I think 1 week I kind of spent in a learning curve. I was doing a lot of things, learning and teaching myself. So I'm like, you got nothing done. And I'm like, wait a second. You could beat yourself up and say you got nothing done, but now look at what you're doing and look at the content that's coming out and the new vehicles that you're using to get it out there too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you say that, because obviously we are our own worst critics, and we're harder on ourselves than we are with others. So in your case, you thought you had wasted time or weren't as productive, but when you took a step back and really assessed, you saw the areas where, no, you did produce something tangible. You were productive. And so that's what I tell folks too. You have to be kind to yourself, be empathetic to yourself, speak to yourself the same way that you speak to your lover or your family or your friends. Again, we're so focused on the external and making everybody else comfortable, but we don't give ourselves the same love and care.
Right. And I remember when, years ago when my gifts blew up and I was trying to really focus and figure it out, I remember one particularly rough day, and I don't know what did it, but I sat down, and I said, if any of your friends ever said the nonsense that you just had this conversation with yourself, you would walk away and never speak to them again.
Yes.
Because it was brutal. It was a brutal day. It was an emotional overwhelm. This is going back years ago, but I definitely want people to know that these things do happen, and we have the tools if we consistently use them to get above it. Mm-hmm. But I remember that was another pivotal moment for me. I was like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, all right, we have to find a better way. There has to be some kind of something to help you move past this. So mm-hmm. It was huge for me.
So I'll share an experience I had recently. And this is why I tell folks, you need to pause. Whatever you're doing, pause. Take a breath and focus on that inner dialogue. The other day, I was feeling really frustrated. And the reason why I was frustrated, I later uncovered, is because of some interactions I had on some collaborations where the other several individuals had not pulled their weight, essentially. And that day, my partner was here minding his business, on his computer. And I found myself getting up to try and start an argument with him to sort of expend and expel these feelings that I was experiencing. But right before I walked into the room, into that door, where he was sitting, I caught myself and said, why am I trying to cause an altercation with my partner based on the feelings that I'm experiencing that have nothing to do with him? And where are these feelings stemming from? Right? That could have been a situation where there could have been a blow up between us. Solely my fault because I did not address my emotions. And I would be shifting the blame to him who has nothing to do with this. This is why I say take a breath, pause, and really assess that inner dialogue.
I actually love that because I've done that too. But, I love it because we're so quick to, and this is one of the things that I have learned for me. When I react, I'm like, oh, good God. It's like that for me I know you need to stop talking and step back because you're reacting instead of responding. Mm-hmm. And I've caught myself. I've definitely caught myself of like, how dare you? It's like this litany, and you're feeling attacked or whatever it is, but your mindset's going, how dare they do this? And the reality of it is your feelings may be hurt, or you're viewing something that's not really the case. Mm-hmm. So it's that pause is a great idea. Pause it.
Yeah.
Before you open your mouth, pause and think.
I have to add this in there because some folks may be aware, you are aware of this as well, but I have this resource. It's a 21-day abundance and happiness challenge. And in that 21-day, individuals are walking through various steps, developing habits and rituals where they're really understanding what sparks them joy, what brings them gratitude. And it's genuine. If the person puts in the work, after the 21 days, they will see a significant change and shift in their mindset, perception of themselves, and that inner dialogue that goes on. So for those of you that are watching now or watching later, definitely check that out if you're looking to really alter that inner voice and shift the mindset.
I think that's great because if you send me a link, I'll join.
Would love to have, and I would love to get your feedback because obviously as coaches, we put things out there, but if we get that feedback, we can improve on these deliverables, these free resources that folks can access.
And I think as coaches too, it's so important to keep growing and learning and expanding,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I think it's great. And I'm always looking to, you know, on that mindset. I really am. It's really important. As is happiness, because shit, we've only got one life. You know, if you're going to be miserable, that's not what life's meant to be or do.
I'll give you one example of one of the activities. So for one of the J's, you either find a song or create a playlist that brings you joy. And I have to say, I had someone share their playlist with me, and I have been listening to it because I'm just like jamming out because I love the vibe, the positive energy. And believe it or not, it's not just the internal, what we're experiencing. The external environment obviously affects how we engage as well. So the more positivity you can include in the external, the more positive impact you'll bring into the internal.
And you know what? Well, people laugh, but music is a big thing. You know, if you're listening to super trashy music, that will get into your head, and you become aggressive or angry, or you're picking, or at least I know I do, I'll pick up as empaths. So I'm going to be picking up the singer, the songwriter, what's going on behind that song. You know, it's not just so there's some music and some artists that I kind of steer clear of, and then there are others I'm like, I love this song, you know.
I'm with you on that topic. I love music. My household growing up, it was all about music, all about dance. And for me, I can't go the day without listening to music. Obviously, what I listen to changes depending on my mood and what I want to set in terms of a vibe. I can tell you when I'm angry and upset, I might first put on an angry playlist or listen or, you know, strong. But then when I'm over, when I've done, you know, going through those feelings, I will shift it to something that's a little bit lighthearted, you know, more fun, more poppy.
Yeah, it's true. When I've been really angry, I put on some very interesting music, but it actually brings your anger down because you feel like you've got an outlet for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the whole point is that these emotions that you have inside, you trying to manifest them in some tangible way outside. And so that can be starting an altercation with your partner, like I almost did, or listening to, you know, a playlist.
Yeah. But it's, you know, I definitely want people to understand it is an ongoing, consistent, everyday practice. I mean, do you ever go a day without working on your mindset?
No. I mean, even if I wanted to not do so, I can't because this is what I do, right? I'm always reminded of what I do. I have people who reach out and provide feedback. I have people like yourself who I collaborate with. And even when I'm sitting down and taking a break, I'm always thinking about, okay, what's the next thing? How can I improve upon something? Because I'm still flawed. I'm only human. I still have things that I need to work on and develop. And so your mind is always racing about, okay, what's next? What's next? And you know, again, present moment awareness is important, but we're also either thinking about the past or thinking about the future.
That's true. Yes. Yes. And then we could, you know, beat ourselves up for the past, or we could be like, why aren't I there right now? You know? So that's present moment is really important.
And then, you know, with us as coaches and entrepreneurs, one of the things that, along with pausing, is to really find the time for that self-care. Because if you're not energized, if you're not present, if you're being pulled in so many directions with your focus split, that's actually going to hinder you and prevent you from doing the work that you have to do on your mindset and that inner talk.
Yes, I definitely agree. All right, it is about 30 minutes. So would you like to share where people can reach you and I guess how to get involved in your 21-day program, your 21-day challenge?
So guys, my Instagram is at @thefabchieftess. I also have a website, www.thefabchieftess.com. And on that site, I have several resources and challenges, one of them being the 21-day abundance and gratitude challenge. I highly recommend that if you want to do any sort of mindset work, any sort of positive shifts, develop habits and rituals, you sign up. Please sign up, take advantage. And if you have any questions, feedback, I'm available. You get communications, you get a journal, you get instructional videos for the habit of the day. And in that communication, you can reach out to me directly.
That's great. That's very great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun.
Always a fun conversation with you. And I'm so grateful for our connection and for you having me on your live.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Because I think mindset's so important. I think it's it's something that we need to work on every single day. It's definitely something that I'm focusing on. I've got my little index cards of ideas, thoughts, beliefs that I'm always carrying around with me.
I love that. And I love the work that you do on the empath side, because people don't realize just how many individuals have either some or are 100% an empath. So it's important work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Same here. You have a lovely day, lovely weekend, and bye, everyone.
Bye.